Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. We will explore in this presentation how multimodal tutoring is reshaping writing center pedagogy, particularly through the integration of AI, video, audio, and interactive tools into directive and non-directive instruction. So with that in mind, let's understand first and foremost, what is multimodal tutoring or multimodal learning as a whole? Well, multimodal learning is defined as a practice of integrating multiple modes of communication. So this includes things like text, visuals, audio, video, and interactive media to enhance student engagement and comprehension. So let's think about this in the realm of writing centers. Writing centers primarily rely on things like face-to-face or text-based feedback, but multimodal tutoring offers more enhanced interaction and accessibility. So think about it kind of like different tools that can enhance what writing centers already do, or the sanctity or versatility of different writing center pedagogy. So let's understand that in the different contexts of certain studies. In this study, we're going to really compare traditional tutoring methods versus emerging technological tools, along with balancing directive and non-directive instruction using those multimodal tools as well. By the end of this presentation, our objectives are to understand how multimodal tools support learning, explore how these tools fit in with directive and non-directive tutoring frameworks, along with assess accessibility benefits for diverse learners, and finally understand the implementation challenges and best practices. So with that in mind, let's understand directive and non-directive instruction and how multimodal tutoring can actually enhance these frameworks. So let's understand directive instruction. So this is something that tutors offer explicit feedback, right? Correction, structured guidance, things that are a lot more direct and a lot more explicit. These are best for students who need clear direction. They may not be familiar with writing as well. They may have English as a second language, or they could be students who just generally struggle with organization. So like, for example, a tutor who provides rewording suggestions and sentence restructuring techniques, right? You really want to be direct and upfront. And in a lot of cases, you're kind of putting the answer out there for the writer to follow along. Whereas non-directive instruction usually involves a little sense of autonomy, right? The student is basically encouraged to think for themselves or respond to different prompts that you, as a tutor, offer them that allow them to think more critically or think about it in a much more problem-solving context. This kind of method is ideal for experienced writers or those who need to develop independent writing skills. An example of this might be a tutor who asks open-ended questions to guide student reflections. Now, of course, in writing center consultations, it's pretty rare that you're going to have to do one or the other. Typically, this can be a combination of both. So how do you balance those two things, right? So you need effective tutoring that often blends both directive and non-directive strategies based on student needs. And in this way, multimodal tools, as we'll go on and explain later on in this presentation, can facilitate both approaches very fluidly and, of course, very dynamically. So let's understand what role multimodal learning looks like in tutoring itself. So the multimodal learning theory is that learning is enhanced when you have multiple sensory modalities. So think about this like visual, auditory, and kinesthetic tools are activated. This supports students with diverse learning preferences and cognitive abilities. So typically sitting in a room and talking to a student directly may not have the same effect than if you were to do it this time with the use of different tools that the student can rely on or that they can interact with to enhance the learning as part of that session. Some common multimodal strategies that have been utilized include text-based feedback. So this can be just traditional, for example, sentence level adjustments, but can be enhanced with AI tools like Grammarly or ChatGPT. So in a larger sense, a lot of writing centers have started to integrate technology into their consulting strategies. So this includes use of things like laptops, or in some cases, iPads in the consultation itself for the consultant to use and interact with. So this is an excellent way for consultants not only to use that to enable the writer to think a little bit more critically, but at the same time, this can be an excellent way to provide clear examples on the spot that can enhance the writer's learning. Now, a lot of writing centers also offer what's called virtual consultations. At the UNLV Writing Center, we offer that as an option. And this is done purely through Google Meet. And consultants have the option of using online resources and online websites. So this is an excellent segue for consultants to use that in that application, and of course to find a lot more benefit from allowing the writer to kind of take the initiative in their own learning. Next, we have audio feedback. So this can be like verbal explanations that improve comprehension or beneficial for auditory learners. Some students like to hear things, and typically if they hear it from somebody that they convey as a authority figure, which tutors from time to time tend to fall into that category, they may not be so comprehensive to that feedback. But with the introduction of a lot of auditory tools that we have, this is actually an excellent way to provide that comprehension skill. Now, auditory tools, like for example, Speechify, can be excellent for students who are ESL learners, or English is not their first language, or they're in the process of learning English. This can be a great way for tutors to actually translate certain concepts to be a little bit more clear or a little bit more concise to the writer, um, according to their skill level and according to their particular needs. Video explanations are also a great way to do this as well. In a lot of cases with virtual consultations, especially in the realm of the UNLV Writing Center, we do offer virtual meetings that enable consultants to share a screen and to walk the writer through different revisions and analysis via Google Doc or Microsoft Word doc. And doing this actually allows the writer to kind of see up close and up front the consultant interact with their writing and show them where they need to improve. So having kind of video explanations or even online conversations like the one we're having here can really demonstrate writing revisions and analytics, and provide that needed information for the writer to use. There are many visual aids in the same realm that consultants can use, whether that be through virtual consultations or even in person as well. For example, Lucidchart is a pretty popular platform that exists right now that allows you to kind of create concept maps. And with that concept map, you can have the writer come in with an idea and really just allow them to have a medium or a space where they can just idea dump. They don't understand something. If a concept is not clear, it can be really important to just let them draw it out. Where are they struggling with? And having something like a whiteboard or a concept map, like for example, in the case of Lucidchart, is excellent, right? Because that gives the writer the initiative to just build something out, with, of course, the consultant's guidance. Now, having these visual aids in both in-person and virtual consultation can be an excellent way to actually map out what the writer's skill level is or where they're coming from. In a lot of cases, some writers are a little bit hesitant to open up to their consultant about what they struggle with, specifically. Might be out of fear, could be out of stigma, doesn't matter. But having concept maps and having ways that they can interact and like put that together is crucial, and it can build a really strong relationship with the writer themselves. And of course, if the consultant is also in the same concept map or whiteboard or Lucidchart, they can interact with those ideas and move them around and even create different organizations and maps so the writer can easily visualize them. Now, of course, you can do this on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, but creating maps of various scales and being able to do that on a larger scale, with, of course, the plethora of resources available on the internet is incredible. And use of tools like this can really allow that visualization to be more clear and more effective for writers. And of course, we have interactive learning. So this is very similar to video explanations, right? You have real-time collaboration on shared documents, peer review on, for example, multimedia. So in the case of in-person, you can think about this as an writer comes in with a laptop, the consultant can have a secondary laptop, and they can just work out of that document together. This is typically the case for virtual consultations, but if you can interact all of the different multimodal strategies, this can be the best way to look at it. So what does this mean for engagement? Well, let's think about the fact that it reduces cognitive overload by offering multiple ways to absorb information. Use of artificial intelligence, use of visual or audio feedback is a great way to create kind of a closed feedback loop where writers are not being too overloaded with information, but they're getting the information that's crucial to improve their writing. It also encourages higher order thinking skills through interactive discussion. So this allows you to plan out where are the bigger concerns of the writing opposed to just having to sparse through grammar or punctuation. And this increases accessibility. At UNLV, we place a high value on our diversity, especially through our students who may have disabilities. And so increasing accessibility, for example, for students like this can be excellent and gives them the tools they need to enhance their learning. So what exactly can we take from this? Well, how can writing tutors effectively integrate multimodal tools and non-directive tutoring? How do these tools impact student comprehension, retention, and revision skills? Finally, what does multimodal tutoring enhance accessibility for ESL and neurodivergent students? Well, to answer that, let's take a look at some practical uses. We'll start with AI-powered writing assistants, right? You have Grammarly, ChatGPT, Pro Writing Aid. These provide real-time grammar and clarity structure that helps the students self-edit and recognize writing patterns before working with tutors. So they actually have like a closed feedback loop, and they can really garner down what are the main things that they are struggling with. This assists tutors in identifying recurring student challenges because they're not walking into the consultation not knowing what they're struggling with. Interacting with an AI can actually help them hone down and look at certain concepts, and even asking the AI to explain those concepts can be instrumental and gives the tutor much more practical information to work with and a much more effective use of their time. Like we mentioned earlier, audio and feedback-based feedback can be great, especially screen recording tools like Loom or Panopto basically allow tutors to provide step-by-step annotations, for example, based on the different consultation types that different writing centers offer. Of course, text-to-speech tools like Natural Reader or Speechify help students process written feedback more effectively, and this can be more heavily applicable for students who are ESL as well. This can also be ideal for auditory learners and students who need asynchronous feedback. Students who like to hear that feedback can be great beneficiaries of this particular method. Interactive learning tools, like for example, mind mapping software like Lucidchart, can aid in brainstorming and structuring ideas. If your idea doesn't make sense or it's not clear, your writing is probably not going to reflect that. So you really want to make sure your ideas are clear so that your writing follows that clarity as well. Digital whiteboards like Jamboard really allow for real-time collaboration and allow students struggling with organization and idea development to interact with the consultant in real time and basically hone down on an idea that they feel is going to be applicable to their writing. So let's think about implementation and what the best practices are. We want to train tutors in integrating AI, audio, and visual tools effectively while not giving them too much control. You as the consultant need to have the initiative, but use these tools to enhance that learning. We're here to encourage students to experiment with multimodal formats, along with having these tools accessible and equitable to all students and from all backgrounds. So what exactly are the benefits of multimodal learning for accessibility, as we kind of talked about previously? Well, for ESL students, this can be audio feedback aids with things like comprehension and pronunciation. Visual aids can help reinforce grammar and structure, and AI-powered tools can help assist with language barriers, explain concepts clearly, and even in some AI models, illustrate that concept or map it out as well. For neurodivergent learners, it's the same kind of ordeal, right? You have customizable learning models like text-to-speech, visual outlines, and recorded discussions that can take their learning at their pace. What consultants should typically avoid is trying to take the consultation at their pace, opposed to the pace at which the neurodivergent learner would like to take. So having some form of tools that can really allow them to communicate with the consultant in a much more clear way can be instrumental in this case. And of course, it provides flexibility for students with different processing speeds. That is absolutely true. If you have something like Claude or ChatGPT, which can explain a concept really nicely and even provide real-time examples in just a matter of a few seconds, that can really allow the tutor to focus more on, okay, now the student has the information, they have examples, let's see if they understand it, and if not, I can come in and assist and we can go from there, right? It basically allows you to have a better starting point as to where exactly you want to start and how you want to do it. So that's basically the larger benefit of multimodal learning and how it can impact accessibility and equitable forms of learning for all students. So the best practice for writing centers is you need to really avoid over-reliance on technology. While multimodal learning is really great if you want to enhance that accessibility and effectiveness of learning, what you may run into is that students may just straight up be dependent on AI rather than improving their own skills. Instead of focusing in on learning concepts, they may just ask an AI to fix everything for them and then, I guess, turn it in. But that over reliance is not allowing you to build cognitive skills. So the consultant should really emphasize really peer-to-peer learning, but using AI or other multimodal learning techniques as a tool to enhance that interaction. With the advancement of a lot of technologies over the past 5 years, tutor training should be adjusted or changed to develop best practices for integrating multimodal tools. Writing centers shouldn't inherently view AI or other kind of technologies as a threat, but rather a tool that can enhance or even make consultations much more effective. And finally, ensuring equity and access. Not all students have access to high-tech solutions, so it's important to recognize that there are limitations as to what each student has access to, and recognizing that that does play a key role in our sessions. So with that in mind, now that we understand the accessibility, the equity, and of course the different application of multimodal learning, let's look at the future and what that holds. Well, now with the advancement of new technologies, we can develop clear multimodal tutoring policies that are going to be reflective of what writing centers are hoping to do. Next, we can train tutors to effectively use AI, video, and audio tools, not only to enhance learning with all writers, but to give special consideration for writers who are ESL or neurodivergent. Next, we want to encourage students to experiment with multiple learning modes. So this can actually help students understand concepts in a bunch of different mediums, and whichever one works best for them can really enhance that learning structure and make it a lot more equitable. And finally, provide tech alternatives for students with limited access. So ways that we can provide contingencies for students who don't have access to high-tech solutions, but finding ways that multimodal learning can still enhance their form of learning. So with that in mind, I wanted to thank you for listening to this presentation, and thank you for taking the time to hear a little bit about how multimodal learning can shift the direction in which we take writing center consultations. Thank you.